theyeshiva.net.
Why does the Rambam call it Hilchos Deis and not Hilchos Midas? Well, I think I explained, because the Rambam believes, it seems, that a person's das, a person's awareness and perception is really at the genesis of how we live. And the Rambam doesn't here argue with the person. He's not telling you to fight yourself and repress your energy and deny who you are. But the Rambam is saying you have the freedom to choose a path and to make it part of your life. And his key ingredient is habit. Do it again and again and again and again and again. V'yachzer b'hem tamid. Just do it again. And then you will not be a victim. You will create new vistas, literally new pathways. He keeps on talking about the derech. Today we know in neuroscience you actually create new pathways, literally, pun intended, new drachim. You create a derech yeshara for your brain. Why does this come right after Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah? That's a beautiful question. It seems like the Rambam said in the beginning of this introduction of the Sefer, he says, Sefer Hamada, right? Sefer Hamada is the first Sefer. And he says, I'm going to include all the mitzvahs which represent the ikar, the fundamentals of the religion of Moshe Rabbeinu, and a person has to know them in the beginning of everything. For example, Hashem's unity, the prohibition of idolatry, and I'm calling it Sefer Hamada. The whole book is called Mada, which means things that I have to know. It's the book of knowledge, because the Rambam says these are the things a person has to know in the beginning. So the first section was Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, means you have to know where you come from. You have to know that we have a creator, we have purpose, we have meaning. You have to understand emunah, that there's a God who created you and conceived you in love and gave you a mission in this world. That's Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah. And God didn't only create the world and went on vacation, but he communicated his blueprint for the world, which is what halacha is. Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, and it concludes with Matan Torah and prophecy. Now Hilchos Deis is about you. Now you have to know about you. You have to be self-aware, right? You have to live an examined life. Like the Rambam says, the Chachamim would always examine their lives. Always examine their lives doesn't mean that there's a mitzvah that you, every morning you have to sit down and say, okay, let's start over again and figure out who I am. You won't be able to live. But it means that I'm always open to critique, to growth, to self-development, to look deeper into myself. So this is part of Sefer Hamad. It's part of the deis that a person needs to cultivate and develop. And for the Rambam, this is extremely fundamental. After Hilchos Deis, after the 7 chapters, he's going to go to Hilchos Talmud Torah, the laws of learning Torah. And then he's going to go to idolatry, and then he's going to go to tshuva. But it seems like for the Rambam, this was so fundamental because these are the ethical pathways of life. These are the values we cultivate, the temperaments, the dispositions, character development. And the Rambam here is going to discuss also nutrition, physical health, emotional health, psychological health, spiritual health, relationships with other people. So for the Rambam, it seems like this was the next step right after Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah. Does the middle path mean the middle, or does the middle path mean a different type of path? That's what I think I tried to explain. I don't think the middle path means, there's a football field and I find the middle point of the field and that's where I go. We're dealing here, with complex emotions. I think the middle path represents what he calls Derech Hashem. So many people say that they're just born certain ways and there's nothing that they can do to change it. What would the Rambam say about this? There are certain things we cannot change about our life. I can't change the color of my eyes, and there's certain things I can't change. The Rambam is not telling the person that you should make believe you don't have certain challenges or certain situations. That's never a question. The question is, what happens now? Yiddishkeit and Torah never want us to deny what we're struggling with or what I'm dealing with. This is the backdrop upon which my life has to play itself out. I may have certain dispositions that I have to deal with. And those dispositions may go away or they may not go away. And the Rambam says, we have no problem with that. I'm not attacking you for being born a certain way or for growing up a certain way or for internalizing certain mindsets due to your nature or your nurture. The question is, what now? Am I a victim of them? So the Rambam comes and tells us, no, that a human being has that ability to be able to transcend extremes and reach that midpoint in which you become a synthesis and a combination of different extremes. I think that's also the idea of the middle. The middle is not just somewhere in between. The middle is really the idea of synthesis, of integration, of unity, where I could really bring together different things. That's what the middle really means. It's called Kaveh Emtsoi. Like in Kabbalah, you have Tiferes that combines Chesed and Gvura. That's Kabbalistic language. It's not Rambam language, but it's language in Zohar. That Tiferes combines the two. The middle doesn't just mean I'm in the middle, I'm not here, I don't have a position. They used to say about an Israeli politician, he didn't like to take positions. So they used to say, if you ask him, do you like coffee or you like tea? So he would say half coffee and half tea. We don't mean the middle of basically, I don't say this, I'm just always in the middle, I'm sitting on the fence. That comes from weakness, not from strength. The middle path here that he's talking about is the path that synthesizes extremes, because it transcends extremes, because it doesn't get stuck into extremes. That ability to be able to look at both extremes and to be able to appreciate that my nature, I'm gravitating here, or I'm gravitating here. And nonetheless, I should be able to appreciate that this may be my nature or my nurture, and yet I really want to cultivate a path based on my vision, based on my deis, on my values and my vision of what is right in the world. And that's part of why he calls it Hilchos Deis. It's so much based on my vision, on my das, on my awareness and understanding of what my values are and what's the right way to live. The Kotzker Rebbe said, as ferd gehen mitten de gas. Menschen gehen oder rechts oder links. The Kotzker Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Morgenstern, one of the great Hasidic masters of Poland, said that human beings either walk on the right of the road or on the left. Horses go in the middle. And his point, of course, was to ridicule people who don't take strong positions in life. They're always, somewhere in the middle. How do you reconcile that with the Rambam? It's a great, great question. And the answer is that they're actually talking about very different things. The middle of the Kotzker Rebbe is a middle that's coming out of cowardice, out of weakness, out of fear. I'm afraid to be decisive. I'm afraid to take a stand. I don't want to speak up because I don't want to be labeled. So I just sit right there in the middle so everyone can see me as part of their own group. It's people who appreciate and know the price of everything and the value of nothing. It's what Eliyahu Hanavi describes at Monsey atem poischem al shtei haseifim. It's what we say in Yiddish, tanzen auf zwei chasanas, pre-corona, because today with Zoom weddings, you could dance at 9 weddings simultaneously. You just have 9 screens in your home and you can dance at all 9 weddings. But when you have to go to a wedding, you can't dance at 2 weddings. So this person in the middle, is just a very indecisive person. On Vasnusa, the Gemara says, the Tosefta says in Shabbos about Zchariah ben Avkilas, I don't want to take this position, I don't want to take this position, I'll always be in the middle. Zchariah ben Avkilas, and Vasnusa shel Zchariah ben Avkilas. That's what the Kotzker Rebbe was criticizing. He wanted people to be a real person, be an authentic person. Take a position, fight for it. Be a man. The Rambam is talking about a midah beininus that comes from strength, not from weakness. It doesn't come from being afraid of going this way or going this way. It's coming from the strength of looking for the derech Hashem, for the divine path. The divine path is not one of extremes. The divine path is one that extracts the beauty and the virtue and the goodness in each of the extremes and creates something that's a synthesis where they converge into a seamless whole. That's the midah hemtzayis. That's how I understand it. I once read also an essay by Rabbi Adin Even Yisrael where he addresses this contradiction between the Kotzker Rebbe and the Rambam. Do these new neural pathways in the brain create new feelings? Absolutely. Of course, absolutely. My physical brain changes. And it's amazing, the Rambam's words, how to do this. The Rambam doesn't tell you, sit with me for 50 years, I'm going to analyze you. The Rambam says, start living a certain way. In other words, action has a tremendous impact. When we start doing things unconsciously, we just do them again and again and again. It becomes part of who we are. And it's incredible. We see it today. A lot of therapy has shifted to this. Of course, you need awareness. The Rambam didn't right away say halacha va'azayin. It's the last halacha. Till then, he gave 6 halachas because you need awareness, you need understanding, you need a good understanding of all of this. But then the bottom line, the Rambam says, is just do it. And not do it instinctively without consciousness, without knowledge. Not fake it. He's not talking about faking it. That's not faking it. Doing it means realizing that this is true, this is where you want to be, and this is how you start living. And the Rambam says, when you start living, this becomes part of who you are. And this is because this is the derech hayotzer. I think that's why he has to say that it's the yotzer. If we would say that a person could be really damaged, then it wouldn't work. Because then I'm fighting myself. So the Rambam says, no, you don't know that. You were formed by God. So the pathways of Hashem are really your pathways. However, I may not feel it. I may have other dispositions. I may have grown up in a certain environment. May have certain challenges in my nature. Okay. But when you start behaving this way, you're not just doing things on an external level. You're actually tuning in to your most essential form. If you're tuning into your essential form, you're going to be successful. There's a lot of depth here. A lot of depth. I'm thinking as I'm teaching this, I'm thinking it's incredible. And this was written almost 1,000 years ago. Perhaps Hilchos Deis comes before Hilchos Talmud Torah because Derech Eretz Kadma La Torah. And this is the Derech Eretz that precedes Torah, like it says in Pirkei Avos. Is there an objective standard for the middle path, or everybody has a different middle path? For example, you'll ask me, how much I'm supposed to spend on a house, on a wedding, on a car, on a wedding gown, on a sheitel, on a coat, on clothes, on vacations? Everybody has different answers. And then you choose where to live. Am I going to live in Short Hills, New Jersey? Am I going to live in Tenafly? Am I going to live in certain parts of Monsey? Am I going to live in other parts of Monsey? Am I going to live in Teaneck? Am I going to live in Englewood? Am I going to live in Williamsburg? Am I going to live in a modest area or in a more extravagant area? So even taking the average of the locale varies widely. In other words, in every community, the average is differently. Yeah, I don't think the Rambam is here creating a fixed model of the middle. As you say, the extremes by everybody is different, right? As he said. So the middle is also everybody is different. And this is, he says, the Chachamim said you have to evaluate your life and figure these things out. The Rambam says there's a mitzvah to follow Hashem's ways. V'alachta b'drachav. It's the first mitzvah that he said in Hilchos Deis, the first mitzvah, right? Li'damas b'drachav, to imitate Hashem. He just covered the first mitzvah. To follow this path is to imitate Hashem, is to align yourself with Hashem. I think align is better than imitate. I see the English says imitate, but I think align ourselves is probably a more accurate translation. So I have a question. If I have hate to somebody I'm supposed to hate, for example, somebody who deserves to be hated, David HaMelech says, Halai mesanecha Hashem esnu v'skamemecha skaita tachlesinas neisim loyevim hoyali. Or I'm angry when I'm supposed to be angry. Is that the kiyum of the mitzvah of halachta b'drachav? Because Hashem also gets angry. It's a great question. If you could be sure that your anger and your hate is a reflection of the divine energy, then probably yes. Over here you have to be very careful. Here you have to be very careful, because if you're making a mistake, you could just be a hater. Beautiful, beautiful questions. Everybody have a wonderful day.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.